Effects of cocaine use from drugabuse.com. Cocaine is a powerful and highly addictive substance. We already knew that. Let's skip to the important parts. You can read along if you'd like. Link is below. Cocaine can be found in a number of forms, including white powder, paste, or solidified, and rock-like, the latter commonly referred to as crack cocaine. Whatever the form, cocaine acts as a strong stimulant substance that can provide a rapid onset rewarding high, speeds up very physiologic processes via its central nervous system effects, influence both short and long-term mental health. Short-term effects. The high experienced after cocaine use is accompanied by a number of desired effects, including feelings of euphoria, increased energy, grandiosity, inflated self-esteem, elevated mood. Some people use cocaine in a misguided attempt to enhance performance or meet some other end goal. Since it temporarily decreases the need for sleep, some people will abuse the substance to stay alert, to study, or to accomplish a strenuous task. Since it suppresses the appetite, it is also sometimes used as a weight loss tool. The long-term outcomes for both of these scenarios are bleak. People may find themselves tragically ensnared by addiction for what started as a grab for fleeting gains. In a way similar to other drugs of abuse, cocaine use is associated with unwanted short-term effects. Cocaine use may also bring about feelings of restlessness, irritability and anxiety, panic, and paranoia. Snorting cocaine can lead to losing your sense of smell, irritation of the nasal septum, sniffling, nosebleeds, and hoarseness. Like, believe me, it's gonna be big, whatever. Yes, it is no secret that Donald Trump is a cokehead. This explains his erratic behavior. This explains his value system. And this explains why he dropped bombs on Syria after his daughter got all teary-eyed over it. I'm sure she was laying on her stomach on her laptop while he was doing coke off her ass. Oh, Daddy, the dead Syrian children, you gotta do something about it. It's no surprise that somebody who gained his fame, notoriety, wealth during the 80s is a cokehead. And it's no surprise that somebody who's of a mind to lust after his own daughter would do such a thing. Who was damn near the only person who warned you about this retard? Me. You know how much shit I got over it? A lot. But now the shit is dumped back on you daughter fuckers who believed in this twat. I warned you. I warned you. I warned you. Well, you thought he was going to be different from a neocon because he says, we're going to bomb the shit out of ISIS. Yes, we're going to bomb the shit out of people who target urban centers exclusively. At least when it comes to their military operations in the West. Western civilization. The attack on Perth was a terrible attack on Western civilization. I don't care what happens to people in urban centers. Because these are the people who hate the decent among us the most. What do I have in common with a Parisian? What do I have in common with a New Yorker? What do I have in common with someone from San Bernardino? I have nothing in common with them. In fact, statistically speaking, those people killed in those terrorist attacks are people most likely to want me in jail for what I've said. So to hell with them, and in hell they most likely are. But lost in the shuffle of this whole story with Trump bombing Syria because it made his daughter very sad is the alternative media's response to it. Now, predictably, they're like, oh, he lied to us. We didn't want this, except this is what he campaigned on, bombing the shit out of ISIS, which is just code word for, I'm going to start another Middle East quagmire to temporarily boost my sagging approval ratings because people are stupid. They mistake activity for achievement. And what more explosive activity is there? What more attention-grabbing activity is there than starting another war? And lo and behold, the polls on Drudge Report the day after, whatever it was, when the Drudge Report poll asked, do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing with regard to the military action in Syria? 60% of people thought it was a good thing, so there you go. Nobody learns anything. Nobody ever learns anything. Decades of Middle East quagmires, decades of American intervention in these regions. It never works. It just creates another problem, which got me to thinking about what the military-industrial complex requires, but that is another topic for another time. Maybe I'll get to it later. But the one thing I noticed is the alternative media's response to the whole thing. All right, getting back to where we started. For the last year and a half, yay, Trump, waving your American flags, ooh, make America great again, ignoring the glaring, crippling flaws of this man and what he believes or really what he doesn't believe. The man has he has nothing. Money is the only thing he values in his life. Money and cummies from his daughter. That's what he's all about. He doesn't have a coherent worldview. He's nothing. But the alternative media, after years of warranted skepticism with regard to the American political system, all of a sudden it changed. Oh, he's different. It'll be different this time. It just reminded me of Obama 2008. And I said it. I said it on Twitter at one point, and people were like, no, it's different this time. And not really. They're just asserting it, not giving any reason why it's different. Trump, Obama, Obama, Trump. The entirety of the alternative media, they were acting like they were high on 2008 hopium over a New York City baby boomer liberal. A liberal whose only defining feature is that he happens to like the great Satan. And gee, wonder why. It's the only place that encourages him to worship Mammon. And why does he worship Mammon? Well, why do other baby boomers like him worship Mammon? And let's not forget this. Let's not forget that baby boomers are among the most decadent, materialistic people that have ever existed. The only generation to be more prosperous than their parents and their children. But the fringe intelligentsia, the alternative media, hand-waved it away, whatever, no big deal, or didn't even acknowledge it. Many, 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 many reasons to oppose retard Trump that they all call Daddy. Daddy's gonna make it better. He's gonna clean up my mess. Like a bunch of children, and when has a child ever made a correct decision on a global scale? Doesn't the Bible call a child king a curse? Am I wrong on that? Am I not remembering that correctly? Whatever. And let's not get it twisted. Trump is a child. Let's look at Pope John XII, who I believe fucked his own niece while he held the office of the Pope. I think he was 18 when he was elected to that position. And, well, he behaved in a similar way to the president. But the alternative media, the fringe among us, they share some responsibility in bringing that clock closer to midnight. That doomsday clock just a hair closer to midnight. But are they taking any responsibility for it? No. So I'm going to tell you that they are, in part, responsible. Ultimately, it's Trump who is responsible for all this, for listening to his daughter's insane whims and surrounding himself with, well, the swamp he apparently wanted to drain. But the alternative media in this situation, it's like the Romans compared to the Jews, let's say. And their betrayal was selling out for a baby boomer cokehead. And somebody brought up to me, well, he wanted Hillary Clinton to take a drug test before one of the debates, therefore, when has this man never projected what's true about himself onto others? And before I get into that, I'll remind you, he is not just a baby boomer cokehead, he is a baby boomer cokehead who openly lusts after his own daughter. In fact, he fantasizes about her getting fucked by black dudes. Remember his Howard Stern interview? He's the first cuck president. Fancy that. I mean, shit, even by the fringe weirdos metric, he's a bad choice for leadership. Bad choice. But I can't expect people who worship chaos to adhere to their own standards. So as we know, to us, to the younger generation, Donald Trump is famous through the TV show Apprentice. It's a reality competition show. And here's a little bit on how it was developed. Getting this from Wikipedia. After recovering from a series of financial setbacks in the early 1990s, the well-known New York real estate developer Donald Trump changed his business strategy from borrowing to build and purchase assets to licensing his name to others. So he went from building up buildings to shucking and jiving, building a brand. Producer Mark Burnett approached Trump about a new television show. Although Trump was skeptical, stating that reality television, quote, was for the bottom feeders of society, unquote. Now, by all accounts, Trump gets all of his information from television news. Big TV watcher that Trump is. His words, reality television for the bottom feeders of society. Now, this may be true, but this is how he sees himself. He has very low society tastes. After all, he's buddies with Howard Stern. How much lower can you get? But even in more simple ways. Fuck, remember when he was shilling for Pizza Hut? And their ad slogan, at one time, I don't know if it was at the time he was shilling for their products, their slogan was making it great. He stole his campaign slogan from fucking Pizza Hut. He says reality TV for the bottom feeders of society. And he ends up doing reality TV. Let's also keep in mind that this is a man who said that he's never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke. In several photos, he has an open can of Diet Coke adjacent to him. The fact that he asked for a drug test out of Hillary Clinton before a debate is proof enough that he's on something. And this is interesting. The opening theme music used on the show The Apprentice is For the Love of Money, a 1973 rhythm and blues song by the OJs. Now, For the Love of Money, as we know, comes from the famous Bible verse, 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. And the lyrics in this song, he approved this? Because I looked this up, I never heard the song before, but I looked up the lyrics for it, and they're pretty woke, actually. For the love of money, people will steal from their mother. People will rob their own brother. People can't even walk the street because they never know who in the world they're going to beat. For that lean, mean, green, almighty dollar money. People will lie, Lord, they will cheat. People don't care who they hurt or beat. A woman will sell her precious body. For a small piece of paper, it carries a lot of weight. All of this is true. Maybe Trump should listen to the music that appears on his endeavors. He's an evil, 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 evil man. And I know what you're going to say. Well, at least we tried. You tried wrong. You tried a bad idea. I'm going to stand up and clap. Yay, you tried a bad idea. Fuck you. Activity is not achievement. You tried. You tried doing what? Being a fool? Doing something you knew would end in ruin, just like it ended in ruin every other time? That you can't vote your way out of this mess? Then you could tell me Hillary Clinton would have been any better. Really? An amped up cokehead wanting to soothe his fuck buddy's hurt feelings, because her feelings hinge upon dead Syrian children for some reason. And he's not just an incestuous amped up cokehead. He's a prideful one who loves money, which, as we know, is the root of all evil. There he is in the Mar-a-Lago Situation Room. Oh, they all think I'm a Russian plant. Who cares? None of them care. I gotta show them that I'm not a Russian plant puppet. That'll show them. Amped up paranoid cokehead who fucks his daughter. There you have it. That was your alternative to Hillary Clinton. Who, by the way, is an evil woman herself, but she is a decrepit old woman suffering for her sins in this life. And in the life to come, but whatever. But she's a decrepit old woman who could barely stand up on her own. Whose victory would have been symbolic. It would have been a palliative to the feminist set, who are coming to realize that being a careerist corporate automaton is no way to be. That's no way for a lady to be. And by the way, Donald Trump thinks that's what a lady should be. Notice how it's always white people who think that their women should act like men. One of our fuck-ups in the multitude of fuck-ups that we have inflicted upon ourselves. Oh, we need a bunch of women in the workplace. Well, that means we need a bunch of women in college, and, well, look where that has led us. A bunch of women who have dying bird haircuts. Like stressed out, diseased bird haircuts. Who've sucked one too many dicks and blame the patriarchy for it. And you know what? In a way, they're right, because it's people like Trump Not him specifically, but people like him who have forced these women into this sick environment known as the university. And you expect them, you look at a university, you're going to tell me that any young woman entering that environment is going to come out unscathed? Happens all the time. Young woman enters bright-eyed, optimistic, nice. You think the future's in good hands. 4 years later, she's dyed her hair a strange color, given herself a Skrillex haircut, maybe has a couple of tattoos, now writes slam poetry about how she's a slut, and she looks like she wants to die. Happens all the time. Closer to every time than some of the time. And that's the fate so many of us choose for our daughters. And you think a president's going to fix that, regardless of who it is? No. Something like that starts and ends with you. So the feminists don't like Trump. You could say, oh, well, it triggers them, but for all intents and purposes, he is a fucking feminist. And then you say, oh, well, he's more nationalist. Sorry, I don't want Pizza Hut nationalism. You can have it, idiot. And fancy that, globalists are richer than ever. What's the Dow at right now, as of this recording here? Sunday night, Dow, 20,656. Just barely off its all-time high. We need to run America more like a business, bro. Oh, so I either go through mandatory sensitivity training for my wrong-think opinions, or I get fired. Now, I guess we are running our country like a business. Another reason why you should fuck off with your, well, it was Hillary or it was Trump bullshit. I predicted correctly that a Trump presidency would spur the wrong people into action. See, throughout the Obama presidency, the corporate powers that be, with regard to speech platforms such as YouTube, they let some things slide. Because, well, we president now. Vosotros presidente ahora. And with Clinton, it would have been more of the same, the perception of it. So they would have grown more complacent. Finally, we achieved history again. Female president. We finally smashed the patriarchy. And they can pretend that everything is fine. They let more things slide because, hey, we're in charge still. Even though, for all intents and purposes, they are. They just don't like the guy who agrees with them. Leftists are excellent at pretending that they are operating from a disadvantage, a permanent disadvantage. And when they can ostensibly say that they actually are, they're going to work twice as hard, which is what you're seeing now. This is not something I complain about. This is not something I've even mentioned until now. For the first 2 years I was doing this, I didn't have one terms of service violation strike on my YouTube account. Not one. Since Trump was elected, 2. Happened on 2 separate occasions. What that tells me is that I'm correct. They don't care because they never cared when they were president, when their guy was the president. And now the guy they made out to be this evil fascist Nazi, even though he is quite left-wing, the left is on the attack. Think about the corporations they control and the corporations that Trump enables. They're becoming much more strict in enforcing their speech policies, which wouldn't have happened under Clinton. A decrepit old woman who's probably dying of Parkinson's by all accounts would not have done this. And her being president, you have the advantage of the left becoming more complacent. But now you have the worst of both worlds. You have the right drifting even further leftward, and you have the left becoming more radicalized and willing to do something about their grievances. So as I predicted, a Trump presidency, a Trump regime, a Trump administration is making the world a worse place for those of us who seek the truth. And we're also closer to the Doomsday Clock. As I guess none of us can say anything if we're that close to Doomsday, so. A decrepit old woman whose victory would have been mostly symbolic. And by the way, I'm going to bring this up. I think in this day and age, a person's position on sodomy, on LGBT bullshit, you could tell everything there is to tell about that person by how they feel about the subject. If they're for it, they're a piece of shit. If they're against it, they're on the right track. This heuristic that I've developed has not failed me. Donald Trump. Publicly for it, privately for it. Big fat piece of shit. Clinton. Publicly for it. Big fat piece of shit. But privately, according to WikiLeaks, she's actually against sodomitic marriage. So, I mean, it all ends up the same in the end. But take it for whatever it's worth. So a lot has happened in my absence, and a lot will continue to happen. But you know how to look at the world now. You know the proper lens through which to view things. You do. But one thing that people seem to have forgotten about by now is Milo Yiannopoulos being outed as the dirty, filthy pedophile, pederast really, that he is. Advocating the same things that the original Gay Rights Charter advocates. And NAMBLA as well. You know, a lot of us, out here on the truth-telling fringe, whatever you want to call it, we're calling Milo Yiannopoulos a pedophile. Long before the mainstream picked up on it. Didn't he say his pro-pedo comments in January 2016? So, well over a year. Well over a year from when that happened to when people picked up on it. And the most disgusting part about it was that people were defending him. Which just goes to show you how pro-sodomite our society is, which is what I've been telling you for quite a long time. You know, it's interesting. You can call homosexuals pedophiles, and they all are. You could say that in front of a black person, they'll be like, yeah, you're right about that. You say it in front of one of these politically active whiteys who's really right-wing and likes the based faggots, they'll get so defensive over it. Like 2008 stuff, white people like, my best friend's gay and I'm voting for Obama, kind of defensive over it. Which tells you in 2017 what the right wing truly is. What white society in general truly is, because the left hasn't changed on that issue. The right, however, they've become more progressive. Sodomy laws are counterproductive in this day and age. How dare you support the Westboro Baptist Church? So these are exact words people have directed towards me in the past few weeks. Advocating for the reintroduction of sodomy laws is apparently counterproductive in this day and age. That's a very current year argument there. But I have Breitbart open. I'm going to read their most popular. Somebody brought this to my attention. But first, their most popular. Donald Trump's pick for top economic advisor is pro-immigration, pro-outsourcing. Well, Trump is pro-outsourcing himself. He waffled on the H-1B1 bullshit back in the debates. Everybody's forgotten about that. Not me. Not me at all. But I guess it's easy to forget things that are happening in the here and now when you want to pretend like it's the 80s. And the 80s are a shameful chapter in American history. But, comparatively, I guess they're better. But that's where we're living. Yeah, sure, build that wall. 30 years too late, but I guess it's the thought that counts. Anyway, this is hilarious. Somebody brought this to my attention. Maybe I talked about this, I don't know, but I'm going to talk about it again. I know I've talked about this particular individual before. Read a Smoking Gun article about them. We're going to get to that after we read this Breitbart guest opinion piece, Gay Thought Police Like Soviet-Era Bullies, written by Michael Lucas. Written by Michael Lucas, who's whining about LGBT bullying, gay thought police. What? You're the beneficiary of it, motherfucker. But what is Michael Lucas known for? Well, let's go back a little bit. Long time ago, we read this article from The Smoking Gun. And it's this. It's this. Mansion owner claims Airbnb X-rated scheme. Woman says she was duped into gay porn rental. It's from November 23rd, 2015. The owner of a California mansion alleges that she was duped into renting out the property via Airbnb to a firm that produces hardcore gay pornography films and left the 1920s property awash in enema kits, various sexual devices, and assorted bodily fluids, according to a lawsuit. Christina Napick, owner of the Acacia Mansion in Ojai, a city 80 miles northwest of Los Angeles, charges that she agreed to lease the property for 5 days in mid-August to a woman who claimed that she and a group of friends would stay at the $1,095 a night home for a quick summer vacation. And of course, that ended up not being the case. In a November 19 Superior Court complaint, Napick, 46, alleges that Anna, the purported renter, was actually Andre Travis, the gay porn actor, director, producer, known professionally as, drumroll, Michael Lucas, who is writing opinion pieces for fucking Breitbart, which employed an admitted pederast for over a year until the heat got to be too much for them. So here's your right-wing bullshit. Here's what white America, at least one half of it, supports, and it's just the same as the other half. Just on a little bit of a tape delay. Right or left, you're going to find the same thing. Sodomy, except one side is, well, just don't be too upfront about it, and the other side is like, yeah, celebrate it, we'll throw you a parade for it. Either way, it comes up the same. Neither of these is preferable over the other. So, Michael Lucas, the guy who pisses and shits all over 100-year-old mansions, says, one of the core beliefs of the movement for LGBT... I won't torture you with that. He says, one of the core beliefs of the movement for LGBT equality, cough, cough, supremacy, cough, cough, has always been that gay anti-bullying, especially of young people, or that anti-gay bullying, especially of young people, must end. And yet, in recent days, thousands of online comments and threats from LGBT people, you're not people, cough, cough, you're not people, have been directed against two young gay men who express their opinions about the current presidential race. Yes, this should be the primary concern. Whether or not LGBT people should be able to express their opinions within the their sick community predicated on life-ruining bullshit. It's not a stretch to say that friends don't fuck each other in the ass, and yet you have a community somehow around it. A community around committing violence against yourselves. Then we should be concerned about the thought police within your realm. Fuck you. Because this is the thought police that you've imposed on the rest of us. You are the primary beneficiaries of hate speech legislation, and it is legislation. Corporations derive their status from the state. They have their own meta-governments. They enact these policies, which they then impose on the rest of us. Those of us who seek to use these platforms created by these corporations are those of us who seek to gain employment from them. These hate speech and anti-discrimination policies are created by sodomites. Whether they're engaging in it or whether they're just enabling it, I don't really care. It's all the same to me. And they benefit from it. They're allowed to peddle their pro-pederast propaganda, while if you create content in the opposite, if you advocate for the opposite and you tell people why these monsters are wrong, well, then that's hate speech. So you're allowed to be positive about things, but you're not allowed to be negative about things. You know that rule, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction? Well, they seek to rewrite those rules. And, well, that's what they've done. So, with that in mind, I'm supposed to be sad that, they're policing their own because one of them strayed from the orthodoxy slightly. This reprobate supports the guy with an R next to his name who supports sodomy. Oh no, this goes to show you how insane they are. They're already not perceiving reality. First of all, the very definition of their existence, what they live for, is anti-reality. It says, fuck the purpose of human biology. That's not real. So they act in accordance to its perversion. They're not seeing reality. Fuck, the guy with the R next to his name, he said, oh, I'm going to be even better for the sodomites than Clinton. Okay, great. That made my decision a lot easier. So, Breitbart, insane, perverse, giving piss and shit mansion man a platform upon which to peddle his filth, but I suppose that is par for their course. So this deviant piss and shit mansion man, friend of Trump apparently, defending Trump supporters. You remember all the r/the Donald posts about how all these Redditors making posts on r/the Donald, saying how Trump gave them the courage to come out as a sodomite. Trump gave them the courage to be given over to a reprobate mind. Look, I'm not making it up. It's all documented here. Just go back into the archive and enjoy. But back on the Trump thing, does anybody find it strange that this guy doesn't even live with his wife? He spends more time with his married daughter than his own wife. Now, I think I said it on Twitter that Trump is normalizing single motherhood amongst whites. It's true. Why isn't he raising his kid? Oh, wait. His kid isn't a girl, his youngest, so I guess he's not too interested in that. It's bad enough that this idiot is a serial adulterer. Not only that, he is leaving kids to single mothers, essentially. By all accounts, Donald Trump and Melania Trump's relationship it's all for show at this point. And not only that, he lusts after his own daughter. He's been divorced several times before this. But, we've talked about on this show the terrible thing that is divorce. It's the worst thing you can do to a kid. You're ripping that child in two. The only thing worse you can do to a kid is raise it in a same-sex couple household. Man, the highest office of the land is saying, yeah, that's a good thing. Whatever. That's what he's telling people. And these people are stupid enough to model their behavior after him. Look at all the people who imitate him. High energy, low energy, winning. So much winning. I'm tired of winning. So yeah, a lot of retards out there emulate this guy. And how is he using his position? For good or for self-aggrandizement? But I ain't done with him. I ain't done with Milo either. He's a filthy fucking pedo. That for some... He still has an audience for some reason. So maybe pedophilia isn't such a big deal for people anymore. I don't know. It's going to reach that tipping point in our lifetime where most people are going to be cool with it. And then the right wing will be like, well, it's fine just as long as you're not, like, in your face about it. Great fucking ideals you have there. Anyway, yeah. When the whole Milo scandal was fresh, people were unearthing some information about George Takei and how he also spoke positively about being molested at a very young age. And they always seem to default to the same ages. It's always somewhere between in the teens. Because in the teens, they can feel comfortable with the lie and pass it off as a truth. And, it won't come under that close of scrutiny. Yet, too old and people will be like, no way, that doesn't happen. So they always default to around like 13, 14, 15, somewhere between 13 and 17. All right, as we know, they go much younger as we are about to find out. But remember that episode of AFK I did? I think it's still up. It's the one where the guy goes into the nightclub and asks like, oh, when did you lose your virginity? And it was a sodomite nightclub. And all these guys are like, they basically admit to molesting children. Some of them outright do. There's the full version on the internet somewhere. You'll have to look for it. Maybe I could get the time. Nah, I won't be able to find it in a reasonable amount of time. But yeah, it's on YouTube still. I checked a couple months ago. It was still there, so I assume it's still there. And yeah, this guy going up, it was just like on some random night at this place, and he's talking to these old queers, and these old queers are like, oh, I lost it at 12. And then it's like, oh, what's the youngest guy you ever got with? And then the guy says, like, oh, if I told you, I'd go to jail. So, Milo and George Takei. George Takei is another beloved, one of America's beloved reprobates. For some reason, I have no idea why. They go much younger. They seek to destroy innocence when there's actually innocence to be destroyed. So when they say, oh, 13, 14, 15, some reasonable age to us cisheads, it's about half that, guaranteed. Here's proof. It's from the metro.co.uk. Man sent video of himself sexually assaulting baby to his boyfriend. Oi, bruv. Man has been jailed after sending a video of himself sexually assaulting a screaming baby to his boyfriend. Recall the Larry Brinken case. How he liked seeing a black infant getting raped. That's what he said in one of the emails that was included in the story regarding him. Ryan Simpson of Elgin said, or Elgin, I don't fucking know, sent the footage of him kissing the child and then boasted he would have gone further and done as he wanted if he didn't fear getting caught. The hotel worker's crime was uncovered when police raided his partner Scott Aries' home and found the video. Simpson was then questioned by officers in Scotland who discovered child pornography on his mobile phones. The 29-year-old was jailed for a total of 16 months at the High Court in Aberdeen after committing 4 offenses. He was also placed on the sex offenders register for 10 years. Not permanently, not put in jail for the rest of his life, 16 months and, oh, you have to be on this list for a decade. Wouldn't be an episode of this without some Anglo horror story. And how often do Anglo and Sodomite horror stories overlap? I'm convinced that like 90% of that island is full of pedophiles, pederasts, somewhere on that spectrum. An earlier hearing fiscal dispute, Allison Wiley, that said he had been in a long-distance relationship with Aries when the offenses took place. Mrs. Wiley said they previously lived together in Bedford, Northampton, and it was when police visited another male at that address that this came to light. The accused was back in Scotland and at the time when this other male was arrested. See, don't get it confused. All sodomites go both ways. They want to corrupt innocence, anything good about anybody in both sexes. That, well, any age, apparently. So, there you go. How about this one? This one I couldn't pass up. And by the way, I gotta thank you guys. I really do, and this is a weird time to do it in the middle of the show, but for about the last year and a half at least, maybe even more, most of what I've talked about has come from your suggestions. Not necessarily from the question and comment threads, but, you sending me messages on Twitter, hey, talk about this story, thought you might be interested in this, like to read this on the show. And so, thank you. Thank you very much. Because, a lot of people have thanked me for opening their eyes to how things really are out there. But you know what? I have to thank you just the same. You people have contributed so much to what I've done here. And for that, I will be forever thankful. So anyway, you can find this at archive.is if I remember to put it in the description. If I do, I do. I don't, I don't. But anyway, married Republican lawmaker told teenage prostitute he wanted to, quote, fuck his boy pussy, unquote. A married Republican state senator told a teenage prostitute he wanted to have sex with his, quote, unquote, boy pussy, graphic court documents have revealed. And this, I think, comes from some pro-gay website. Pink News, of course. Of course it did. So I'm sure they're all like, why is this guy getting arrested? He should be celebrated. Oklahoma State Senator Ralph Shorty, a senior member of Donald Trump's primary campaign team in Oklahoma. It's all feeding into each other. It's like poetry. Is facing child prostitution charges over an incident earlier this month. The Republican politician who's married with children was discovered in a hotel room with a 17-year-old boy who, according to authorities, Shorty had hired as a prostitute. The age of consent in Oklahoma is 16, but the state's child prostitution law applies to people under 18. Shorty surrendered himself to face charges and has resigned from the state senate. I wonder why this guy and Trump would get along. According to the affidavit, Shorty offered to pay the teen for sexual stuff, quote unquote, sexual stuff, so he could raise money for spring break. In online messages, he told him, quote, "I'm gonna fuck you like a good little boy if you keep calling me daddy," unquote. He also referred to having sex with the teen's, quote, "boy pussy, baby boy," unquote. Bail was set at $100,000. Now, this is catching my eye on the side panel here. Police close investigation into alleged anti-gay chants at Chelsea versus Manchester United. Of course. Let's put police resources towards combating homophobia, but not towards combating these, well, you know what they are. It's illegal to be against it, but not engage in the depravity. A police investigation into homophobic chants by Manchester United fans at Chelsea has been closed after less than 24 hours. Why was it even opened in the first place? Fans of Manchester United were alleged to have chanted "Chelsea Rent Boys" during the game on March 13th. Oi, bruv. We're going to send the whole stadium to jail. But the investigation, which opened yesterday following an allegation by the Sun newspaper, was closed this afternoon. The Football Association is still investigating the matter, with a spokesperson saying, "We have received a complaint about offensive chanting at this fixture." Fuck you. Fuck you, you fucking pussies. That's all you are. Somebody said something mean about our national pastime. At our second most popular national pastime. Spokesperson said, "We take all complaints seriously and look to work collaboratively with clubs, players, managers, officials, and safety officers towards eradicating all discriminatory and offensive chanting. By Chelsea's guidelines, fans found guilty of discriminating against someone because of their sexual orientation face anything between a 3-game ban and indefinite suspension from the club's ground, Stamford Bridge." Let it burn. Just don't let the smoke drift anywhere. So I'm going to read from Arini, who had me on his live stream just the other day. Link to that is definitely below. That was my official first public appearance in quite some time, so thank you to Davis Arini for having me on there. It was a good time. I spent about an hour with them. The live stream was about 4 hours long. Check it out. It was quite good. So I'm going to read this from his website, staresattheworld.com. "Donald Trump is not our savior." It says, "I'm sick of hearing about our bombing of Syria, a foolish rattling of the saber over a chemical attack which, according to the latest UN statements, was performed by our erstwhile allies, the rebels. The same loose affiliation of Mohammedans who are behind the recent attack in Sweden, pictured above. New boss, just like the old boss. The military-industrial complex will have its way. The deep state triumphs again. Common filth speculates that Trump is an emotionally responsive cokehead. That would certainly explain his success in the fast-paced New York real estate market. It would. Anybody who was anybody in the 80s was on coke. And because he's a fat ass, he probably thinks like coke is a good weight loss plan. But you gotta get off the McDonald's and KFC in order for that to work. What else? Roosh V quotes Quintus Curtis, who points out that the truth was always there for us to see, but we projected our own beliefs onto the man in hopes of a return to sanity. It's true. The warning signs were there all along, as I have explained throughout this episode. Earlier in this episode. People just wanted him to be something, because he wasn't the woman, and whatever. It was mass hysteria. That's all it was. And, well, projection on behalf of his base was a part of it. The problem is that we are not a sane people. We worship a cartoon frog. We try and lose ourselves in mass movements. We're torn between hating the Jew for selling us pornography and hating the person who says to stop watching it. We want to cosplay at self-righteousness without ever doing the hard work of becoming righteous men. We want to be Templars without ever going to church, and in our heart of hearts we're no different than the social justice warriors we claim to oppose. This is what I discussed on my live stream along with Common Filth, the Beckloff, David McMurdo, and the Blaze. There's no us. There's nothing but different factions and a mock sword battle being put on by the SCA. A generation raised without an identity, locked into the prepubescent stage of putting on costumes. Adults dressing up like comic book characters and perverts turning their sexual deviancy into an identity. All of them on both sides begging, demanding for an authoritarian state to save them from themselves. As Dostoevsky wrote in The Grand Inquisitor, yes, we will make them work like slaves, but during their recreation hours they shall have an innocent childlike life, full of play and merry laughter. We will even permit them sin, for, weak and helpless, they will feel the more love for us for permitting them to indulge in it. We will tell them that every kind of sin will be remitted to them, so long as it is done with our permission. That we take all these sins upon ourselves, for we so love the world that we are even willing to sacrifice our souls for its satisfaction. The left wants George Soros to redeem them from their sins, for the right, Daddy Trump grants permission to indulge in materialistic debauchery. He's a baby boomer, his salad days were in the 80s. And nobody figured this out. Well, I figured it out, but I know I shouldn't brag, but damn. Like I said, what keeps me coming back is that I'm right. I love being right. But then I asked myself, to what ends? Yeah, more on that later. Where did I leave off? The Western man is dying because his soul died long ago. Blank-eyed zombies smoking pot, playing with their iPhones, screwing around on Tinder, or finding vacuous catharsis through video games turned Skinner boxes. Feel wrapped in cotton, autoerotic assisted suicide. That is what your fellow compatriots are fighting for. A pleasurable descent into the nihilist's abyss. Let's quote from Quintus Curtius here. In this era of lies, hypocrisy, and false god emperors, what a bloody sham, the only solution is to turn away from the evil and elevate yourself. Improve yourself. You now have to be bigger, better, stronger, faster, and tougher than ever before. You have to be stronger now than you ever thought you could be, because we have all been sold out and left by the wayside. But they underestimate us, our power, and your power. When the time is right, the dividend of all your hard work will be paid, but the road will be long, bitter, and full of despair along the way. You need to dig deep now. That's the end of that quote. The world we've built for ourselves is structured in such a way that the sane man will be driven to the edge, while the mentally ill can subsist in perpetuity. The model employee is a borderline who slavishly devotes their soul to HR for the sake of the effect. The model entrepreneur is a manic charlatan who sells nothing but non-existent bridges, but whom no one will call out. Pop culture is not but indulging your worst impulses and vices, addicting yourself to wrath, gluttony, or lust. Family law has turned into a prisoner's dilemma where the first defector makes all the profit. Stay calm. Oh wait, I skipped a paragraph. Pardon me. Trying to remain sane, decent, and moral and focused in this environment is a Herculean task, but this is the task which is set before us. Stay calm and collected, network with the other individuals who are walking this path. Strap steel bands around your skull if you have to keep your mind from detonating. Don't let the pressure get to you. There's but one path forward that doesn't involve hell on earth, and that is spiritual excellence. A spiritual revival based upon individual discipline. Abandon the gods of the marketplace and devote yourself to living the change that you want to see. Men of this world will not save us, but through the grace of God we will be able to save ourselves. That is at staresattheworld.com. Link to that is below as well. And somebody asked here, I think this is worth reading. Davis, quick question, can you explain this sentence more? Quote, the model employee is a borderline who slavishly devotes their soul to HR for the sake of the effect, unquote. And the explanation here. Take two employees. One is a regular man or woman who's doing the job for the money. They aren't slavishly devoted to the company, but they're pursuing their own self-interest. The other is an empty shell with cats at home, who's leveraged to the help paying for a mortgage and landscaping, who derives their sense of self from the artificial community offered by the company they work for. Which one will get laid off first? See, this is another danger of the corporate nation state that Trump will do nothing but enable. You're seeing a complete destruction of the community. We're going to look like Japan. 8 more years of this shit, we're going to look like Japan. Where you have dudes who fall asleep at work, and that's considered a good thing because they're really devoting themselves to the company. How many white retards out there want us to look like a white Japan? That's so beautifully explained in I don't know if it was directly explained like that, but it was in the adverse transmission video that the Rome is Burning guys did, which there are more of those coming up. So keep your eye out for those. But yeah. Japan. They want a shitty society, but they just want to be safe from crime and terrorism. How fucking pathetic. How low can your standards be? The corporate nation state is no good. They're no good for speech. They're no good for the future of speech and the freedom of it. And they're destroying communities so that they could sell people their community, their brand of it. Consumerist hell. That's what they're selling, and they're getting away with it. And I think the only way out of it is to treat them like the nations they want to be. Now, if you put them up to it, they'll be like, oh, why are you doing this to me? No, I'm just selling stuff. Oh, now you're just doing it. After all the filthy marketing and advertising you do, now you just want to sell stuff. See, people want to do the right thing when their feet are put to the coals, but you know what? At a certain point, beyond that threshold, it's too late. I watched a movie, it was about a year ago, I think. There's a movie called Rocky Handsome. I think it was like a remake of a Korean movie done in Bollywood style. It was actually a really good movie. Lots of neat Christian imagery and message in it. And there was a scene in the movie where one of the bad guys, it's like a crime movie. Really cool, check it out. A really good movie. And, yeah, there's a scene where one of the bad guys is about to kill some guy who did him wrong. I don't know. I don't remember the context, but the bad guy who's about to torture or kill this guy says something interesting. He says, we Indians have a problem. We only say and do the right thing when it's too late. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not just an Indian thing. You could see it all around. You could see it here. You could see it in your neighborhood. People will only do right when it's too late. Maybe people will learn what a girl looks like. How she's the vessel of life in the future. And how she acts like it. Right up until the point where she gets put through the meat grinder that is university, and then it's all over. But that assumes that men have their senses left intact. And again, I keep going back to this. They go into school bright-eyed, optimistic, decent people, and then they leave a cynical mess. I keep thinking about that. And how many young women that has happened to, who would otherwise be well-adjusted and good mothers, good wives. And, I wouldn't expect a lot of young men to be able to pinpoint that because they don't know what life is. They don't know how to give it, create it, nurture it. I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. But I will say that I have been very, very lucky in that respect. So a bit of an update on where I've been since the end of January, which is when I last did an episode of the show. About a month after the last episode I did, I was in Vegas for some business. And Vegas is the most American city, I think. It's overwrought, overblown, decadent, destructive, very, very segregated. And by that I mean economically. Where I was staying, penthouse of this place where millionaires, professional athletes, world famous musicians live. And right, you see the dividing line of where These $1 million homes are right next to it, right across the street. You see just the most desolate, low-rise apartments you can imagine. And I look at that and I'm like, how can you live with that? You see all these wheelers and dealers eating their, $12 burgers at 11 p.m. at night. When you're done looking at the suits and ties over there, you catch an Uber or a Lyft. And you see these people living a very, very different life. And how they have to look at that every day. And I just wonder, how do you live with that? And I felt disgusted. I did. You see all the pot dispensaries there and the advertisements for that. It's a nightmare. But it was what it was. It is what it is. Mammon worship is a very ugly thing. But that's either where we're headed or where we are as we speak. And this just arrived in my Twitter feed. No Peace But Sword says, I wonder how many people's lives pornography has ruined. I would say a comparable amount to gambling. Let's just say that, and the love of money. But I don't mean to be glum right now. I'm fine. And I appreciate all the kind words you people have sent to me, both in public and private. Thank you very much. I said it's being right that keeps me coming back for more, but if it wasn't for you backing me up the whole way, this would have been dead in the water. I wouldn't have developed my mind, my ideas, the correct view that I have today. Even more correct than when I started, and you have played a vital role in that, and for that I am thankful is too light of a word to describe it. Well, that's the one we're going to have to go with. The fight ain't over. Pornography, divorce, single motherhood, sodomy, these are all evil, evil things that the world refuses to acknowledge as evil. So our work isn't done. But like Irini said, surround yourself with people who are walking this path, who say no to the world and actually view things for what they are. They're not afraid to confront evil and call it evil. If that's the path you are on, find others who are on it with you. My walk upon that path is far from over. I hope that applies to you as well. If it does apply to you, I hope we meet upon it someday soon. So with all that being said, take care of yourselves, be good to each other, because nobody else will.